September 26, 1943. In the balmy tropical night, 3 small canoes cut through the dark waters of Japanese-occupied Singapore harbor. Their occupants, an elite British and Australian special operatives team, is about to carry out one of the most daring commando raids in history. Having survived a 2,000-mile voyage through hostile seas disguised as locals in a captured Japanese fishing boat, they now prepare to blow the enemy merchant fleet sky high with limpet mines. Blacked-out ships loom like ghosts against the shadowy hills. In the first canoe, Major Ivan Lyon and able seaman Andrew Huston battle treacherous currents, their hearts pounding as they stealthily maneuver their fragile craft alongside a hulking tanker. Carefully affixing limpet mines to the ship's hull, suddenly Huston freezes. He nudges Lyon, gesturing upwards. 10 feet above, a face peers down from a porthole. The commando's muscles tense, fingers hovering over their weapons. One shout, one alarm, and their fate is sealed. The entire operation, months in the planning, will unravel in seconds. As the stranger's stare intensifies, seconds stretch into an eternity. Lyon's mind races, calculating their odds of escape. In the dark days of early 1943, the Allied war effort in the Pacific was struggling. Japan's grip on Southeast Asia seemed unbreakable, and Singapore, once a bastion of British power, had become a fortress for the enemy. It was in this context that an audacious plan was born. The architect of the scheme was a 28-year-old British officer, Captain Ivan Lyon. Lyon had escaped from Singapore during its fall to the Japanese in 1942, and the idea of striking back had consumed him ever since. His unlikely partner in this venture was Bill Reynolds, a 61-year-old Australian civilian with an intimate knowledge of the region's waters and access to a rare asset around which the entire idea would be formed, a 70-foot-long captured Japanese fishing vessel called Kofkumaru. Lyon realized this unassuming craft could provide him with a Trojan horse for his simple yet daring plan. By disguising men from an Allied Special Operations Unit as local fishermen, he could get Kofkumaru near Singapore without attracting attention from the enemy. 6 brave commandos would then board collapsible canoes known as full-boats, paddle into the harbor under cover of darkness, and attach limpet mines to the Japanese merchant ships docked there before returning to the fishing boat for the 2,000-mile journey back to Australia. The risks were enormous. If discovered, the men would certainly be executed. Even if successful, they would have to navigate back through Japanese-controlled waters for weeks. Yet Lyon and his team were undeterred. Christening their plan Operation Jaywick, they saw that this was their chance to hit back at an enemy that had seemed invincible. Kofkumaru was renamed Crate after the small but lethal Asian snake. It was a fitting moniker for a vessel designed to slip into enemy waters undetected and deliver a cunning strike. Crate would carry a team of operatives from Z Special Unit, a joint Allied Special Operations Unit. Lyon, now a major, would be accompanied on board by 13 men who represented a carefully selected mix of British and Australian sailors and soldiers, each chosen for their unique skills and unwavering courage. Key members included Lieutenant Hubert Edward Carse as Crate's captain, Lieutenant Donald Montague Noel Davidson, an expert in covert operations, and Lieutenant Robert Charles Page, skilled in navigation and explosives. The team was rounded out by corporals and able seamen to form a cohesive unit, each man's individual talents crucial to Operation Jaywick's potential success. The groundwork for the raid began at a secluded area along the Hawkesbury River in New South Wales. This remote spot was christened Camp X and converted into a rigorous training ground for the team of operatives. By August 1943, the team was on board Crate on their way to Exmouth Gulf, Western Australia, where the fishing vessel would undergo repairs as well as extensive modifications to prepare her for the long and dangerous journey ahead. Her engine was overhauled to ensure reliability over the vast distances she would need to cover. Extra fuel tanks were installed, cleverly disguised as part of the ship's structure. A radio set, essential for maintaining contact with HQ, was hidden within a water tank. However, the mission faced a challenge when the full boats Lyon had specially ordered from England for the attack not only arrived late, but were found to be faulty and lacking important parts. The team worked tirelessly to modify them, making on-the-spot changes to ensure they would function properly when the time came. In the end, little time was left for the crew to get accustomed to the new full boats, but unable to afford further delays, Crate set sail for Singapore on September 1st. Barely had her mission begun when it hit another hurdle, breaking a propeller extension shaft. After additional emergency repairs, carried out with assistance from American submarine rescue ship USS Chanticleer, Crate set off once again on September 2nd. As the crew headed toward their destiny, they settled into a routine, with 4-hour watches ensuring the vessel was manned around the clock. They knew the odds were stacked against them. Lieutenant Carse later recalled, quote, "We all realized that our chances of coming back were pretty slim." Yet, despite the dangers that lay ahead, morale remained high. These men were eager to strike a blow against an enemy that had inflicted so much suffering on their comrades and allies. The first leg of the journey took Crate north, hugging the western coast of Australia for as long as possible. Yet, once they headed further north, the chances of being discovered by the enemy increased. Japanese aircraft and ships regularly patrolled these waters. Therefore, the crew's attention to detail in concealing their true identity was paramount. In addition to flying the Japanese ensign, in an attempt to look more convincing in their role as Asian fishermen, they wore sarongs and darkened their skin with brown dye. What's more, they were meticulous about not leaving any garbage of clearly British or Australian origin in their wake for fear of being discovered. Day after day, Crate inched closer to her target, her crew growing more tense as each passing nautical mile brought them deeper into enemy-controlled waters, increasing the risk of detection. Their nerves were truly put to the test as they approached the infamous Lombok Strait, a crucial passage between the islands of Bali and Lombok, known to be infested with Japanese warships. Were their cover blown here, it would undoubtedly bring a swift and violent end to the mission. Their situation was made even more precarious by the strait's currents, which slowed their progress significantly. The currents were so strong that at one point, Crate even found herself going backwards. However, after nearly 24 hours, Crate eventually passed the Lombok Strait, her crew breathing a collective sigh of relief as they entered the Java Sea. Yet they could not afford to let their guard down. They were now in the heart of Japanese-controlled territory, surrounded on all sides by occupied islands as they drew ever closer to Singapore. On September 16, 1943, after a perilous journey spanning over 2,000 miles, Crate anchored off Pulau Pompong, a potential disembarkation point, but early the next morning, it was decided that they would look for a better location. As Crate carefully navigated through nearby islands, the men noticed a sizable increase in enemy activity, including searchlights, float planes, and transport aircraft, making it clear that the area was too dangerous for Crate to risk hiding out in. Finally, in the early hours of September 18th, Crate anchored off Pulau Panjang, considered safe enough to disembark the 6 operatives who would carry out the high-risk mission of entering Singapore Harbor. Major Lyon, Lieutenant Davidson, and Lieutenant Page, accompanied by able seamen Andrew Huston, Walter Falls, and Arthur Jones. Having dropped off the commando team, Crate headed back to Borneo, instructed to rendezvous with the team on October 1st at Pampang. After 2 days of reconnaissance on Panjang, the operatives set out at dusk on September 20th, their canoes laden with a week's supplies. They navigated to the Rio Archipelago's northern edge, island hopping for 3 nights before reaching Pulau Dongus, 8 miles southeast of Singapore Harbor on September 22nd. 2 days later, they observed a fleet of ships totaling 65,000 tons anchored in the roads. They attempted an attack at 10 a.m., but challenging strong currents forced them to abort. Regrouping, they moved to Pulau Subar, which provided a superior vantage point over the examination anchorage. On September 26th, at approximately 7:20 p.m., the operatives launched their second attempt from Subert. They split into 3 full-boat canoes, each with a specific target. Canoe 1, with Lyon and Huston, headed for the examination anchorage. Canoe 2, with Davidson and Falls, aimed for the eastern end of Keppel Harbor and the roads, and Canoe 3, with Page and Jones, made for Pulau Bukum and the western end of Keppel Harbor. Corporal Andrew Crilly, one of the mission's key planners, later recounted, quote, "The lads in the canoes were taking a terrible risk. If they were caught, it would be a toss-up whether they were shot as spies or tortured for information." Despite the danger, the 3 canoe teams worked with determined efficiency, each facing unique challenges. Lyle and Huston struggled against adverse currents in the examination anchorage. The blacked-out ships, almost invisible against the shadowy hills, made target selection difficult. After a painstaking search, they finally attached limpet mines to a tanker's engine room and propeller shaft. As they worked to attach the mines, Huston silently alerted Lyon to an unexpected observer. A man was watching them intently from a porthole about 10 feet above their position. The commandos froze, their mission hanging by a thread. For what seemed like an eternity, the stranger's gaze remained fixed on them. Just as they prepared to abandon their task, the man withdrew from view, and a bedside lamp flickered to life in the cabin. Miraculously, no alarm was raised. With a mixture of relief and trepidation, Lyon and Huston completed their work and set off on the long, tense journey back to Dongas, some 12 miles away. Page and Jones found more favorable conditions at Pulau Bukum. They successfully mined a freighter at the Bukum wharves before drifting with the current toward Keppel Harbor, where they attached explosives to 2 more freighters. Meanwhile, Davidson and Falls navigated to the eastern end of Keppel Harbor and the roads. Their approach nearly ended in disaster when a tugboat almost ran them down, passing a mere 20 paces away. Undeterred, they slipped through an open boom gate into the harbor proper. Finding only small ships within, they returned to the roads and planted mines on 3 cargo vessels, each about 5,000 tons. In total, the team placed limpet mines on 7 ships, ranging from 2,000 to 5,000 tons. Their perilous work complete, the 3 teams slipped out of the harbor as silently as they had entered, setting course independently for their rendezvous with Crate at Pulau Pompong. The following morning, a series of explosions rocked Singapore Harbor. 6 ships, totaling over 39,000 tons, were sunk or severely damaged. The Japanese, caught completely off guard, were thrown into confusion. Meanwhile, Crate was already heading back to Australia, her crew unaware of the full extent of their success. They had struck a significant blow against the enemy, and done so right in the heart of their territory. With their mission accomplished, Crate and her crew faced another daunting challenge: the long journey home through enemy-controlled waters. The vessel was now low on fuel and supplies, making the return trip even more perilous than the outward journey. The crew's nerves were on edge as they retraced their route through the Java Sea and the Lombok Strait. They knew that news of the attack would have reached Japanese Naval Command by now, likely resulting in increased patrols and heightened alertness. As Crate navigated the treacherous waters of the Lombok Strait, the crew's worst fears materialized. A Japanese patrol vessel emerged from the mist, its sleek silhouette growing larger by the second. The men on Crate's deck felt their hearts race as they scrambled to maintain their cover as simple fishermen. The patrol boat drew alongside, dwarfing the smaller Crate. Its deck guns, clearly visible, served as a grim reminder of the stakes. Crate's crew maintained a steady course, fighting the urge to alter speed or direction. The men continued their practiced routines, pretending to mend nets with trembling hands, as they desperately avoided eye contact with the Japanese sailors mere yards away. Major Lyon watched the Japanese vessel from the corner of his eye, ready to give orders should their ruse be discovered. For what seemed like an eternity, the 2 vessels sailed in parallel. The gentle lapping of waves against the hulls did little to mask the tension. Suddenly, a shout from the patrol boat cut through the air. Crate's crew stiffened, certain their capture was imminent. but the Japanese vessel began to turn, its wake churning the sea as it slowly pulled away. The patrol continued on its course, leaving Crate to sail on, her secret intact. As the enemy ship faded into the distance, the men of Crate allowed themselves to breathe again. They had faced their greatest fear and emerged unscathed. But the incident served as a stark reminder of the constant danger that surrounded them on their voyage. On October 19, 1943, after a journey of 48 days and over 4,000 miles, Crate returned to Exmouth Gulf, her crew's seemingly impossible mission finally complete. Operation Jaywick demonstrated the vulnerability of Japanese defenses and provided a much-needed morale boost to Allied forces in the Pacific theater. The gutsy nature of the raid and the skill of its execution were particularly noteworthy. It showcased the potential of small-scale covert operations to impact the enemy significantly, even in their most secure strongholds. For the men who carried out the mission, it was a testament to their bravery and ingenuity. However, the long-term strategic impact was limited. Many of the damaged ships were repaired and returned to service within weeks, reducing the operation's effect on Japanese shipping capacity. Furthermore, the Allied decision not to publicize the mission's true nature had severe unintended consequences. Unable to believe that such an attack could have been mounted from Australia, the Japanese authorities assumed it was the work of local saboteurs. This led to a brutal crackdown on Singapore's civilian population, known as the Double Tenth Incident. Numerous innocent people were arrested, tortured, and executed as the Japanese sought to root out the non-existent local resistance network, raising ethical questions about the operation and the decision to maintain its secrecy. Meanwhile, the men of Operation Jaywick were sworn to silence about their role in the raid. Many of the participants were awarded medals for their bravery, though often in secret, to maintain the operation's confidentiality. It wasn't until decades later that their incredible story could be fully told. Crate, the unassuming fishing boat that had played such a crucial role in the operation, continued to serve throughout the war. Today, she is preserved as a memorial at the Australian National Maritime Museum in Sydney, a testament to one of the most audacious special operations of World War II.